I ask all guests and visitors to please retire behind the rails, and the members will take their seat. We'll get started. Thank you. Before we start, I'd ask that anyone who has a device that makes any sort of sound, to please turn it off or turn it on vibrate. Thank you very much for your cooperation. To give our invocation this morning, we have a very special guest, and the chair recognizes the Reverend Dr. Wilson Goode, also our first African-American mayor, First Baptist Church of Pasco. He is here today as the guest of Councilman W. Wilson Goode, Jr. I would ask all members and guests to please rise.
Almighty, eternal, and all-wise God, we come remembering to whom it is we pray. You are the creator of heaven and earth, and you're not far away when we call. You are the source of all goodness, mercy, and truth, and you are also the great comforter and intimate friends of those who believe you. Your purposes are eternal and all-reaching, but you have called us your children in spite of our sin and imperfection. You know the beginnings and endings of all of our stories, but you've given us freedom and responsibilities as we live our lives. We thank you for your presence and for your provisions and for your promises. We thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your redemption and your love. We come today to pray for this council and to thank you for the lives touched by those you place here to do the business of government. There are challenges facing us: too much poverty, too many homeless men and women and children, too many children dropping out of high school, too many hooked on drugs, too many men and women in prison, and too few in college, too many guns on our streets, too much bigotry, too much inequality, too much injustice. But the very length of this list drives us to you. First, to thank you for the successes as we celebrate today the legacy and life of Cecil B. Moore. You've known us since we were in our mother's womb, and you know the words we now pray before we even speak them. We therefore pray with confidence in your guidance of this council. May each who speak be guided by your Spirit, and may the work that comes out of this council produce a more loving and caring city. We pray for a level playing field for all of your children. We pray for equality of all people, regardless of their circumstance of birth. We pray for justice for all. You've taught us how to do this by your examples, that no one is considered worthless or not worth the effort or disposable or dispensable or forgettable. Our children will not be called collateral damage because they are poor or defenseless or different. You've taught us that those in power should not exploit those who are powerless, or manipulate those who are weak, or feed on their fears for political gain. Finally, we recognize that we are nothing without you. So keep us close to you and remind us of our obligation to do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly before you. We ask this in your name and for your sake. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor, for those inspiring words. Council will be at ease. Thank you very much. If I can have your attention, please. Thank you. We will proceed. The next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 26, 2015, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 26, 2015 be approved.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 26, 2015 stand approved. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and the journal is approved. The next order of business is request for leaves of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the majority, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Republicans, there are no requests for leave of absence.
Chair thanks the gentleman. At this time, I would like to suspend the regular order of business to welcome and thank everyone who has come down today. We really appreciate the fact that you have taken time out of your busy day to come and witness your government in action. We hope that your experience today is a pleasurable one, so much so that you come back again. So again, thank you so much for attending today's council session. At this time, Chair will recognize Councilwoman Blondo Reynolds Brown, who will present a resolution on my behalf recognizing April 2nd, 2015 as Cecil B. Moore Day in Philadelphia. With Karen Asper Jordan and those accompanying her, please join the Councilwoman at the podium. And joining Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, we have Councilman Bill Greenlee, Councilwoman Blackwell, and Councilman Wilson Good, Jr.
How you doing? Good morning. Thank you very, very much, Mr. President. This is a real honor for me as I had the good fortune to attend school, Philadelphia Girls High School for Girls, with Cecil B. Moore's daughter, so it's real special for me as well. Recognizing April 2nd, 2015 as Cecil B. Moore Day in the city of Philadelphia as we celebrate the 100th birthday of Cecil B. Moore. Whereas Cecil B. Moore was born in Dry Fork Hollow, West Virginia, to a prominent physician and school teacher. He was a fourth-generation black professional. And whereas Cecil B. Moore attended Bluefield State College, West Virginia College, and in 1953, graduated from Temple University College. And whereas on April 6, 1946, he married Teresa Lee, a high school biology teacher and daughter of a prominent dentist. They had 3 daughters. And whereas Cecil B. Moore was employed as an Atlantic Life Insurance agent in Georgia, which honed his skills for judicial settlements in later years. In the 1950s in Philadelphia, he was a liquor salesman who formed friendships with those who later became his supporters. He demonstrated against additional bars in the neighborhood, and
whereas with the Reverend Leon Sullivan, he founded the Committee Against Juvenile Delinquency and its Causes. And whereas Cecil B. Moore joined the U.S. Marine Corps in 1942, training at Mumford Point, the Negro boot camp at segregated Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, he served as first sergeant of the 19th Depot, the first black Marines to engage in actual combat during World War II, and also fought for the rights and justice for his fellow soldiers by alerting the black press of their plight. Whereas Cecil B. Moore served loyally for 9 years, earning the highest rank as an African-American could attain, Sergeant Major. In 1965, as a founding member of the Mumford Point Marines Association was formed. These brave men were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal for their service to our country in 2011. This effort was spearheaded by Congresswoman Corinne Brown of Florida. And
whereas Attorney Cecil B. Moore said, quote, "I was determined that what rights I didn't have, I was going to take, using every weapon in the arsenal of democracy," end quote. He felt every person had a right to equal justice and a superior defense, whether you could pay or not. We know that. His success as a winning defense attorney is unparalleled across the country. He handled cases in civil rights, landlord-tenants, and employment discrimination. And whereas Cecil B. Moore led the Philadelphia branch of the NAACP from an elite, non-confrontational organization to a formidable force of quote-unquote direct action of the people. NAACP membership grew from 6,000 to 32,000 his first year. And whereas Cecil B. Moore had a formidable group of men and women from all walks of life who worked tirelessly to achieve equal rights, education, employment, and justice. And
whereas he registered 70,000 new voters, relentlessly fought against police brutality, discrimination in the building trades, railroad, post office, Greyhound, trailways, and the airline. And whereas his longest-lived demonstration began May 1st, 1965, outside Girard College, which at the time excluded African-American children from admission, lasting 7 months and 17 days. Girard College was desegregated in 1968. And whereas Councilman of the 5th District, Cecil B. Moore continued to fight for the rights and services of which his North Philadelphia constituency was entitled under the City of Philadelphia and the Constitution of the United States. And
now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia that today, April 2nd,
2015 be recognized as Cecil B. Moore Day in the city of Philadelphia. Be it further resolved that an engrossed copy of this resolution be delivered to the Cecil B. Moore Freedom Fighters as evidence of the sincere appreciation of this legislative body. This was introduced by our president, Darrell B. Clark, and supported, of course, by all the members of Philadelphia City Council. We salute and say thank you to the Cecil B. Moore Freedom Fighters.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Jordan for remarks.
I would like to say thank you to President Councilman Clark and to all of our council people here, all of our supporters. The fight for freedom is not over. The fight for rights for women, for gays, for everybody, for our children, the fight continues. And if Cecil was here today, I'm quite certain he would say, he would fuss at some of you, lay you out, and praise some of you. Don't give up the power that you have, and whatever law there is or every proposition, make sure you keep the little man in sight. And remember that people with money will take advantage of the poor, the people that don't have people to speak for them. And Cecil was that man that stood up for the poor, the disenfranchised, and that person without a vote. And I want to thank all of the Philadelphia Freedom Fighters here. I don't remember everybody's name, but there's Vivian, and of course Cecil's daughter, Freedom Smitty, Brother Butch, Dr. Walt Palmer, Bernice Mills Devon, Richard Watson. Okay. And I just had a mental breakdown being an older person because we were teenagers and it's been 50 years. So I have the right to forget something. And anybody else that I forgot to mention up here, and Kenneth's wife, all of us believed in Cecil, and I'm sorry, Mr. Muhammad, Mr. Rodney Muhammad, president of the NAACP, which made us laugh. I thought the man made a mistake on the radio when I heard that. But I wanted to say also that we would follow Cecil to hell. It didn't mean we would stay there, but we'd follow Cecil to hell because he cared for us, he used us, he didn't abuse us. We were his children. And he knew we would fight injustice anywhere in the city, outside of the city. And I implore you to keep the little man in your sight. And I thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Councilor be at ease. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. And I can honestly say, if it were not for Cecil, there's no way I'd be standing here. You know? At this time, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass, who will present a resolution recognizing the Northwest Victim Services. Would Melanie Nelson and those accompanying her please join the councilwoman at the podium? And joining Councilwoman Bass, we have Councilwoman Tasco and Councilman Jones.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, a lot of time when crime happens, not just in our city but elsewhere, there's a lot of focus on how do we prevent it from happening again. There's a lot of shifting towards making sure that we apprehend who may have committed a crime. And we don't always get the attention that we need, the support, the service towards those who have been the victims of crime. And so we're here today to recognize Northwest Victim Services for the wonderful work they do and rushing in when so many other people rush in another direction to work on the very important side of crime prevention. But also for the support side of things, this is also a first responder of sorts. And so we wanted to take a moment today and just recognize them and their upcoming 5K walk for safer neighborhoods. And so we have a resolution here which reads, whereas the nonprofit Northwest Victim Services will host their first 5K walk on Saturday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. This event will help raise money and bring awareness and support for safer neighborhoods and victims' rights. And whereas founded in 1981 by the Community Safety Partnership Program, NVS was the first community-based victim services program in Philadelphia. Since then, 6 additional community-based victim service agencies in Philadelphia have been modeled after Northwest Victim Services. And
whereas over the past 30 years, NVS has provided free support services to thousands of crime victims and served as a leading example for nonprofits and city agencies. And whereas NVS aims to meet the emotional and financial needs of crime victims while serving as a liaison between community members and law enforcement. And
whereas in fiscal year 2013, NVS served 3,179 crime victims in the 5th, 14th, 35th, and 39th Police District at no cost. And whereas NVS worked closely with the District Attorney's Office, the Police Department, and area community groups to increase safety in our neighborhoods and spread awarenesses of their services. And whereas the first annual one-step walk hosted by NVS will raise much-needed funds to support victims of crime in North and Northwest Philadelphia. Now, therefore,
resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia that it hereby recognizes and honors the Northwest Victim Services for hosting the One-Step 5K Walk. Further resolved that an engrossed copy be presented to Northwest Victim Services and Executive Director Melanie Nelson as evidence of the sincere sentiments of this legislative body. Congratulations, and I'll be there walking on that the day of the 5K One Walk, and I look forward to seeing you all there as well. Congratulations.
We thank you very, very much. And please know we will do everything that we can to serve all the crime victims in Northwest Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bediz. Thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, the Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson, who presented a resolution recognizing Stand Up for Transportation Day in the city of Philadelphia. With Frances Jones and those accompanying her, please join the councilman at the podium. And joining Councilman Johnson, we have Councilman Greenlee, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, and Councilman O'Neill. And also, Councilman Squilla is also joining, along with Councilman Jones. Hey, folks, can we have a little quiet, please?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Today I am pleased and proud and honored to have this opportunity to present this resolution recognizing Stand Up for Transportation Day. Oftentimes when we talk about the role of infrastructure in our economy, people really pay attention to the significance that it plays in serving as the economic engine and moving our country forward. During the Great Depression, it was Franklin D. Roosevelt who decided to invest in the infrastructure of our bridges, our roads, our railways as a means of putting people back to work. And so today we will acknowledge the significance of Stand Up for Transportation Day having SEPTA, which is the #1 most outstanding transportation agency in the country, was recognized last year. Give them a round of applause for being here today as well. But also, it's important to recognize when we invest in our infrastructure, repaving our bridges, our roads, investing in surface transportation, it's also a matter of public safety, but most importantly, jobs and putting people back to work. And so I want to thank all my colleagues for standing with me today, members of the Transportation and Public Utilities Commission, as we present this resolution. And the resolution reads, urging the United States Congress and the Pennsylvania General Assembly to fund critical transportation infrastructure and recognizing April the 9th, 2015 as Stand Up for Transportation Day in the city of Philadelphia. Whereas April the 9th, 2015 has been designated National Transportation Infrastructure Day to highlight the tremendous economic impact of the nation's transportation network and urge investment in its critical infrastructure. And
whereas the City of Philadelphia, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the United States of America's economies rely on a safe, efficient, interdependent, and multimodal network of roadways, bridges, transit, freight rail, aviation, ports, and intercity passenger rail. And
whereas the nation's roads and transit systems received a grade of D from the American Society of Civil Engineers in their 2013 report for America's infrastructure, which noted that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has the highest number of structurally deficient bridges in the nation and experiences traffic fatalities at a rate 18% higher than the national average. And
whereas the nation's highway and bridge rehabilitation needs now exceed $500 billion, and the state of good repair backlog of public transportation systems has grown to $86 billion. And every American bears the burden of our nation's deteriorating infrastructure, spending billions of additional hours in traffic and billions of dollars in more of fuel. repair, and operating expenses, and consumer goods as a result of the nation's congested and deficient roads. And
whereas investing in the restoration of the infrastructure that supports our transportation network not only enhances the mobility and quality of life for all Americans, it creates and preserves millions of family-sustaining jobs critical to the nation's economic competitiveness. And
whereas the federal government has an inherent responsibility it shares with state and local governments to build and preserve the transportation infrastructure that ensures the nation's prosperity and security. And
whereas the Highway Trust Fund that supports the federal highway and transit programs will become insolvent on May 31st, 2015, and a succession of costly annual short-term patches failed to meet the nation's basic transportation needs. And
whereas on National Transportation Infrastructure Day, Philadelphia's Dilworth is hosting citizens, businesses, labor organizations, and community groups for one of the country's largest Stand Up for Transportation rallies, which took place this morning, to raise awareness of the federal government's essential role in providing the infrastructure that maintains America's efficiency, productivity, and global competitiveness. Now therefore resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia that we hereby urge the United States Congress and the Pennsylvania General Assembly to fund critical transportation infrastructure and recognize April the 9th of 2015 as Stand Up for Transportation Day in the City of Philadelphia. And at this particular time, I want to officially present this citation to you and say thank you very much. Come on, Joe.
Yeah, Mr. Casey will give remarks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson, members of City Council. Full 40% of the transportation budget spent in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania comes from the federal government. And last year, a year and a half ago, the members of the state representatives and the Senate passed an historic transportation bill, Act 89, provided needed money for transportation. Those efforts will go in vain if we do not get a federal transportation bill this May. We need to improve our ports. We need to improve the airport in Philadelphia. We need to improve the main roads coming to Philadelphia, the Schuylkill and I-95, and we need to modernize and expand public transportation in this city. It will create jobs and improve the economy of this city. So I urge everyone to contact their congressperson to support a transportation bill in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
I would like to acknowledge our good friend and colleague from the State House of Representatives, Representative Dwight Evans, who has been a strong advocate in transportation in the state. And with that, council will be at ease. Thank you. Before we Thank you. Before we proceed with council business, Chair recognizes Councilman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission and the unanimous consent of my colleagues in City Council, I would request that we stand for a moment of silence as a sign of respect for the ultimate sacrifice that was given 3 years ago today by Lieutenant Neary and firefighter Sweeney.
Thank you. All please stand. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next order of business is communications, and the chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages from the mayor to the chief clerk. Mr. Decker, would you please read those messages?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am pleased to advise you that on March 26 and April 7, 2015, I signed all the bills which were passed by council at its session on March 26, 2015, except bill numbers 140906A and 140907, which I am returning without my signature. And I am pleased to advise you that on April 7, 2015, I signed Bill number 150144, which was passed by council at its session on March 26, 2015. Since this bill passed, the Law Department has advised that the Office of Property Assessment's powers and duties are established by state statute as well as the Pennsylvania Constitution. OPA will retain full discretion in performing its duty to grant and review tax-exempt status and to impose requirements in connection with that duty. Let me be clear, however, I am sensitive to the concerns that motivated this bill, and it is my understanding that the appropriate adjustments are being made by OPA. My administration remains ready and willing to review any issues that arise. Respectfully submitted, Michael Nutter. And I am transmitting for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Whitman urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 529 Winton Street. And a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the New Kensington Fishtown urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 2550 Emerald Street. And a resolution appointing Leo Admando to the Board of Directors of the Old Special Cities Special Services District, and a resolution reappointing Harvey Spear to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District, and a resolution reappointing Cheryl Barr to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District, and a resolution reappointing Peter C. Rothberg to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District, and a resolution appointing Julie Coker to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution appointing Peter Sones to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution reappointing Larry Howard to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution reappointing Harold Epps to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution reappointing Ernest Jones to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution reappointing Chris Terlizzi to the Board of Directors of the Center City District, and a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the South Central urban renewal area identified by house numbers and street addresses as 1002 through 6, 1008, 1010 through 14, and 1016 South 17th Street, and a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Point Breeze urban renewal area identified by house number and street address is 1642 Point Breeze Avenue, and a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Model Cities urban renewal area identified by house number and street address is 1733 North 31st Street, and an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code to provide for the removal of inoperable and abandoned bicycles located within the public right-of-way, and an ordinance amending Chapter 10700 of the Philadelphia Code by replacing existing Section 10717 entitled Source Separation, Collection, and Disposal of Refuse with a new Section section regulating the collection of waste and recyclable materials in a manner consistent with city practice. And an ordinance amending Bill Number 140145A entitled an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 2015 capital budget as amended by Bill Number 140748 by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources. And an ordinance amending Bill Number 140144A entitled an ordinance to adopt the capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2015 through 20 inclusive as amended by Bill Number 140749 by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources. And an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2015 from the General Fund, the Sheriff, and the Grants Revenue Fund, the Director of Finance Provision for Other Grants, to the General Fund, the Department of Streets, the Department of Public Property, the Director of Commerce, the Sheriff, and the Water Residual Fund, the Water Department. And an ordinance to amend Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising and clarifying certain provisions and making technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Those messages will be printed in today's journal. You have any additional communications, Mr. Decker?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business is introductions and bills and resolutions, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer one bill on the behalf of the administration and two resolutions on your behalf.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising and clarifying certain provisions and making technical changes.
A bill will be referred to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to the city on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 28th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Next week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the model city's urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 1733 North 31st Street.
Next week's final passage calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. I offer two bills, one resolution, one bill on your behalf, along with myself and Councilman Squilla, and one resolution co-introduced with Councilwoman Bass and Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Chapter 19-1300 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Real Estate Taxes by authorizing the benefit of the School District of Philadelphia the assignment or transfer of real estate tax liens on commercial property, either absolutely or as collateral security, for an amount to be determined by the department.
Bill will be referred to committee.
And an ordinance amending Chapter 9-3900 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Property Licenses and Owner Accountability by adding definitions and providing for the transition from housing inspection licenses to rental licenses in 2015.
That bill will also be referred to committee.
And a privileged resolution authorizing the Committee of the Whole to hold hearings to investigate the City of Philadelphia's ability to provide animal care and control services through Animal Care and Control Philadelphia.
This week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Tasco.
For two bills.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance amending Section 9203 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Street Vendors by permitting street vending on the 5500 block of North 13th Street.
Bill will be referred to committee.
And an ordinance authorizing Pradeep Kuthiala, owner and operator of the newsstand located at 908 East Levick Street, to construct, use, and maintain conduits in, under, and across 908 East Levick Street.
That bill will also be referred to committee, and the chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Mr. President, I have three bills, three non-privileged resolutions, and one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Catherine Street and 16th Street, Broad Street and Reed Street, Dickinson Street and 18th Street, Carlisle Street and Reed Street, 15th Street and Tasker Street, Carpenter Street and 21st Street, Smedley Street and Bainbridge Street, and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of 18th Street and Bainbridge Street and 17th Street, Carlisle Street and Porter Street, and Carpenter Street and 20th Street, and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of St. Albans Street and 21st Street, Packer Avenue and 15th Street, Emily Street and 16th Street, Hicks Street and Shunk Street, Carlisle Street, and Wolf Street.
Those three bills will be referred to committee.
And a privileged resolution commemorating the 40th anniversary of Odunde Festival.
And that will be on this week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Authority for, without consideration, deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to city on lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements around situated in the 36th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Next week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal portion of the South Central Urban Renewal area identified by house numbers and street addresses as 1002 through 6 South 17th Street, 1008, 1010 through 14, and 1016 South 17th Street.
Next week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of the portion of the Point Breeze urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 1642 Point Breeze Avenue.
And that will also be in next week's final passage calendar. And Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. No bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer one resolution. I wish to be recognized after the title of the resolution is read.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution calling on the Council of the City of Philadelphia to condemn the actions of Crown Holdings and to call upon the company to drop its anti-union demands and negotiate a fair contract that gives all of the employees of the United Steel Workers a fair opportunity to return to work.
Chair recognizes Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended to permit consideration of this resolution on today's final passage calendar.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of that motion? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that will be on this week's final passage calendar.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution recognizing March 13 through April 15, 2015 as National Deaf History Month in honor of contributions by deaf and hard of hearing community.
And that will be on this week's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Good.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer 3 bills on behalf of the administration.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2015 from the General Fund, the Sheriff, and the Grants Revenue Fund, the Director of Finance Provision for other grants to the General Fund, the Department of Streets, the Department of Public Property, the Director of Commerce, the Sheriff and Water Residual Fund, the Water Department, and an ordinance amending Bill Number 140145A, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt the Fiscal 2015 Capital Budget as amended by Bill Number 140748 by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources, and an ordinance amending Bill Number 140144A, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt the Capital Program for the 6 fiscal years 2015 through 20 inclusive, as amended by Bill Number 140749 by adding and revising certain projects, amounts, and sources.
Those 3 bills will be referred to the appropriate committee, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Mr. President,
Morning.
I offer this morning one privilege and one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A privileged resolution proclaiming April 2015 as National Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month.
This week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution urging President Barack Obama to issue an executive order to the United States Treasury to put a woman on the $20 bill by 2020, marking the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote.
And that will be on next week's final passage calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 7 bills, 2 on your behalf.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance amending Subcode A of Title IV of the Philadelphia Code by amending Chapter 3 entitled Permits, amending Chapter 6 entitled Fines, and amending Chapter 9 entitled Fees, and an ordinance amending Chapter 10700 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Refuse and Littering by amending Section 10701 entitled Definitions, by amending the definition of debris, and by amending Section 10710 entitled Dumping of Debris and Short Dumping by providing for debris generated from construction activity to be placed in construction dumpsters, and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of 5th Street and Lansdowne Avenue, and an ordinance amending Chapter 12-3000 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Use of an Automated Red Light Enforcement System to Prevent Red Light Violations by authorizing the installation of red light enforcement systems at the intersection of Belmont and Parkside Avenues And an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Smick Street and Fountain Street, and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Parkside Avenue and 52nd Street, and an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Rexford Road and 52nd Street.
Those 7 bills will be referred to the appropriate committees, and the chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 8 bills and 16 resolutions.
Thank you, sir.
An ordinance establishing a parking regulation on 12th Street, West Side, Tasker Street to Morris Street, and an ordinance establishing a parking regulation on 6th Street, both sides, Christian Street to Carpenter Street, and an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Tulip Street, Tucker Street, Memphis Street, and Albert Street, and an ordinance amending Section 14517 of the Philadelphia Code entitled UED Urban Experiential Display Overlay Control District to provide for further regulations regarding urban experiential displays, and an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Mifflin Street, 8th Street, Dudley Street, and 9th Street, and an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code to provide for the removal of inoperable abandoned bicycles located within the public right-of-way, and an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Mifflin Street, 8th Street, Dudley Street, and 9th Street, and an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Front Street, Amber Street, Haggard Street, Frankfurt Avenue, York Street, Aramingo Avenue, Cumberland Street extended, the Delaware River, Shacamaxon Street extended, Delaware Avenue, Frankfurt Avenue, and Laurel Street.
The 8 bills just read by the chief clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a privileged resolution honoring the St. John's Newman and Maria Goretti High School girls varsity basketball team for winning the Philadelphia Catholic League Championship, the PIAA District 12 AA City Championship, and the PIAA AA State Championship game while finishing the season undefeated with an overall perfect record of 30-0.
And that will be on this week's final passes calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and congratulating the Constitution High School boys basketball team, the Generals, on winning the 2015 PIAA State Championship and the District 12 City title for the AA classification.
That will also be in this week's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fees simple title to serve the city on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 25th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
That will be on next week's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fees simple title to serve the city on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 1st Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
This next week's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Whitman urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 529 Winton Street.
Next week's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the New Kensington Fishtown urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 2550 Emerald Street.
Next week's final passes calendar.
And 4 non-privileged resolutions reappointing Peter C. Rothberg, Cheryl Barr, Harvey Spear, and Leo Adamando to the Old City Special Services District of Philadelphia.
Those 4 will be referred to committee.
And 6 resolutions appointing to the Center City District Chris Terlizzi, Ernest Jones, Harold Epps, Larry Howard, Peter Sowens, and Julie Coker.
And those resolutions will also be referred to committee. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer 2 privileged resolutions.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
A privileged resolution proclaiming and celebrating May 2015 as Older Americans Month to recognize the diversity and contributions that older Philadelphians have made, and congratulating Ralston My Way for promoting long-term strategies for safe, healthy living for older citizens in Philadelphia.
And that will be on this week's final passes calendar.
And a privileged resolution honoring and congratulating the Curtis Institute of Music on 90 years of music education and commending their directors, officers, faculty, staff, and students, both past and present, for making it an institution known nationwide for its excellence.
This week's final passes calendar. And Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you. No bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes the introduction of bills and resolutions. And the next order of business is a report from committee, and the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a report from the Committee on Streets and Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Streets and Services reports 10 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Streets and Services, to which is referred Bill number 140751, entitled an ordinance amending Section 9204 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Vendors in Center City by reducing the number of vendor locations permitted on the east side of 5th Street from Arch Street to Market Street. And Bill number 141029, entitled an ordinance establishing a one-way regulation on East River Road from Midvale Avenue to Calumet Street northbound. And Bill number 150012, entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 231 by striking from the City Plan the southeasterly half of Crams Avenue from Silverwood Street to a point approximately 65 feet southwestwardly therefrom. And Bill number 150013, entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 12 of the Philadelphia Code regarding towing and immobilization of a vehicle for which registration information cannot be obtained. And Bill number 150092, entitled an ordinance authorizing Lisa Lombardo to construct and maintain an exterior metal staircase encroachment at 2400 South Woodstock Street. And Bill number 150094, entitled an ordinance amending Section 2 of an ordinance, Bill number 140903, approved January 14, 2013, entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 156 by striking from the City Plan 4th Street from Allegheny Avenue to Lippincott Street by extending the period for compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein. And Bill number 150095, entitled an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on the 5800 block of Cottage Street between Harbison Avenue and Van Kirk Street on both sides of the street. And Bill number 150148, entitled an ordinance amending Section 9204 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Vendors in Center City by eliminating previously designated vendor locations in Center City. And Bill number 150171, entitled an ordinance amending Section 9201 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Curb Markets by adding and clarifying the special provisions for the South 9th Street curb markets. And Bill number 150172, entitled an ordinance amending Section 9217 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Valet Parking Zones by revising the boundaries of the Center City Valet Parking Zone. Respectfully reports it as considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so to permit first reading this day of the 10 bills that were just read into the record.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 140751, 141029, 150 012, 150 013, 050 150 092, 150 094, 150 095, 150 4148, 150 171, and 150 172. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. These bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our committee report. And the next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that the bills just reported from committee have been deemed to have a first reading. They will be on a second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. There are no additional bills on the first reading calendar today, and the chair recognizes Councilman Jones for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions on the second and final passage reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up for second reading and final passage calendars today. Numbers 150242, 150244, 150245, 150056, 150091, 150124, 150168, 150170, 150161, and 150169. All of the resolutions and bills are being held.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we vote on these bills and resolutions, we will have our public comment session. It will go as follows. If you're interested in testifying on a bill or resolution that's on to final passage calendar today, I'd ask that you sign up at the table to my left if you have not already done so. When your name is called, we would ask that you come and talk to the podium in the middle of the council. There's a device on the podium. There's a light. When a light turns green, it is your time to speak. When it turns yellow, you will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. And when it turns red, we'd ask that you please conclude your remarks in adherence to the guidelines established by the City Council of Philadelphia. It is my understanding today that we will have an interpreter on 2 of the witnesses today, so we will grant more time to allow for the ability to interpret the language, the testimony. Mr. Decker, please call the name of the first individuals here to testify.
Clemente Rodriguez Moreno.
Mi nombre es Clemente Rodríguez Moreno y mi hijo Cristian Alfonso Rodríguez Telumbre y se encuentra desaparecido igual que sus compañeros, los 43 de sus compañeros estudiantes. Estoy aquí y gracias por darme la oportunidad que vean el gobierno que no nos ha dado solución, no ha hecho nada desde el principio, desde el 26 de septiembre de 2014, no nos ha dado solución que nos presente con vida a los 43 normalistas. Nosotros tenemos pruebas científicas que nos han demostrado los peritos argentinos. Por otro punto, tenemos 5 personas independientes de desaparición forzadas que nos están ayudando y van a investigar los hechos en Iguala, van a investigar al ejército militar, a los policías municipales, a los federales y que deben de estar en la cárcel. Y por medio de ustedes que nos echen la mano para que nuestro caso se reabra en la Ciudad de México.
Thank you for having me here. We're testifying on behalf of Bill 150245. My name is Clemente, and my son is Cristian Alfonso Rodriguez. He's one of 43 students who was disappeared in September. We've come here to ask for your support. To demand an independent investigation. We have scientific proof that's been verified by forensic evidence that our sons were not they were not killed as the government tells us, but instead they've been disappeared. And so we're seeking your support so that there is an independent investigation in Mexico.
Venir aquí a la Unión Americana también. Quiero decir que ningún político nos está financiando la sociedad y gracias por todo el apoyo de manera personal. Reciban un cordial saludo de los 43 padres de familia que nos echen la mano y que no nos vamos a callar para que se esclarezca la verdad.
So, thank you. We've traveled here from Mexico where we've been on a tour throughout the U.S. to tell our story on behalf of the 43 families whose sons were disappeared. And we want the truth to come forward. We're not being financed by any political party or government. We're being financed by people of good faith around the country who've helped bring us here today. And so we thank you for your support.
De nada.
Commenting on 150245.
Mi nombre es Anayeli Guerrero de la Cruz. Mi hermano es Yosivani Guerrero de la Cruz.
uno de los 43 desaparecidos de la normal de Ayotzinapa, en Guerrero, México, el 26 de septiembre, por parte de las policías municipales y estatales y federales de Iguala, Guerrero.
So my name is Anayeli, and I'm sister of Yosivani Guerrero de la Cruz, who's one of the 43 students who was disappeared last September 2014 in Iguala, Mexico, in the state of Guerrero. And we know that they were taken after a demonstration. They were taken captive by the police, by the local police, and then disappeared.
El motivo por el cual estamos aquí es para denunciar las injusticias, la impunidad y sobre todo nuestra violación de nuestros derechos humanos por parte del gobierno mexicano.
And so we're here to demand justice and an end to the impunity and an end to the violation of our rights by the Mexican government.
Y sobre todo, la exigencia que nosotros traemos es la presentación con vida de los 43 estudiantes y castigo a los culpables. Como principal culpable tenemos al exgobernador Ángel Aguirre Rivero y el expresidente José Luis Abarca y su esposa de Ida Iguala, Guerrero.
Okay. And so we're demanding that our family members, our 43 family members, be presented with life the way they were taken from us. And we want justice. We want the people held responsible. We hold the governor responsible, and as well as the mayor and his wife in Iguala, Mexico.
Y sobre todo traemos una petición hacia ustedes como representantes del pueblo. Queremos pedirles que usted de manera individual pueden apoyarnos en que se haga una investigación de manera individual para que se esclarezcan los hechos del 26 de septiembre de la desaparición forzada de los estudiantes.
And so we're here asking you as representatives of Philadelphia to support us in this call. We're seeking to have an independent investigation to find out what happened to our family members, and so that they be brought back and that they no longer be forcibly kidnapped. Thank you.
And,
Lindsay Datterson. Commenting on Councilman Nielsen's resolution introduced today, calling on the Council of the City of Philadelphia to condemn the actions of Crown Holdings and to call upon the company to drop its anti-union demands.
Good morning.
Morning.
Crown moved its headquarters to Philadelphia in 1958. Today, Crown Holdings ranks among the top 10 Fortune 500 companies in the Philadelphia area. The members of the United Steelworkers, Local 9176, were forced on strike September 6, 2013. Crown demanded major concessions from the workers that included hiring new workers at wages 42% lower than the existing ones, a rollback to levels of 1987. And with our economy today, and with Toronto's economy today, there's no way that people can live and feed their families. The United Steelworkers filed a complaint with the Ontario Labor Relations Board as well. And so I'm here today to ask Council to support the resolution. I want to thank Councilman Nielsen for introducing the resolution, and we want to thank the members of Philadelphia City Council for supporting a resolution against Crown Cork and Sale. These members just want to get back to work. They haven't asked for anything extravagant. They just want their jobs back. So on behalf of United Steelworkers, Local 9176, we want to thank you very much, and thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your testimony.
Robinson, commenting on 150161.
Good morning. My name is
morning.
Judith Robinson, here to comment on Bill 150161. It's regarding the land bank. I just would like to make sure that when property is transferred, that in the legislation at Chief Clerk's office, that you have exact addresses, as even if it's parcels. We in our community really would like to know how land is moving. So We would really appreciate if we could get that, exact addresses. So that's my brief comment on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony.
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. We will now consider bills and resolutions. On the final passes calendar, Mr. Decker, please read the title of 150242.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Cecil B. Moore Avenue urban renewal area identified by house number and street address as 1531 Cecil B. Moore Avenue.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brown. Motion.
Make a
Promotion. Promotion.
Okay, I put forth a motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution 150242 is approved. Mr. Decker, 150244.
A resolution urging the United States Congress and the Pennsylvania General Assembly to fund critical transportation infrastructure and recognizing April 9, 2015 as Stand Up for Transportation Day in the city of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the, Mr. Council President, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 150244 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 150245.
A resolution expressing sympathy for the missing students and their relatives and calling for further investigation into the disappearance and alleged killing of 43 students in Iguala, Guerrero, Mexico, for holding those responsible for their crimes in accordance with the Mexican and international standards of justice, introduced by Councilwoman Sanchez.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Keona Sanchez.
Before I call for a motion, I want to thank and ask my council colleagues for support of this. In the birthplace of liberty, and as Martin Luther King would say, an injustice to one is an injustice to all. I thank the families, and I ask that we all stand with them as they believe and they have faith that their families and siblings are still alive. And we call on the international community to lend their support to their plight. So with that, I move the motion on this resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution 150245 has been adopted. Mr. Decker, 150056.
An ordinance amending Subcode A of Title IV of the Philadelphia Code by amending Chapter 3 entitled Permits and Title 9 of the Philadelphia Code by amending Chapter 9200 entitled Commercial Activities on Streets to add an exemption, add definitions, and provide for the use and regulation of mobile food vendors in certain areas.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Keona Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Ayes are 15 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 150091.
An ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code by creating an overlay district entitled WWA West Washington Avenue Overlay to include certain areas of land within the vicinity of West Washington Avenue.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Keona Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 15 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 150124.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Kensington Avenue, Letterly Street, Jasper Street, and Haggard Street.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Keona Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 15 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 150-168.
An ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code by revising certain provisions relating to IRMX, Industrial Residential Mixed Use District.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Gunnarina Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 15 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 150-170.
An ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code by revising requirements for accessory signs located within an area bounded by Juniper Street, East Passyunk Avenue, and Mifflin Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Gunnarina Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Councilwoman Tasco, there were a couple of bills and resolutions while you were out. Just want to be recorded as voting aye. Thank you. The record shall reflect that. Thank you. Mr. Decker, 150-161.
An ordinance amending Chapter 16700 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Philadelphia Land Bank to allow the city to transfer to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for subsequent transfer to the land bank.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Gunnarina Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 150-169.
An ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to enter into an amendment to a sublease agreement with the Philadelphia Municipal Authority for the use by the city of the premises located at 701 Market Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Good, Councilman Greenlee, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman Nielsen, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Gunnarina Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Tasco, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, do you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution authorizing the Committee of the Whole to hold hearings to investigate the City of Philadelphia's ability to provide animal care and control services through Animal Care and Control Philadelphia, introduced by Councilman Heenan.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Move for the adoption of resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Odunde Festival, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Council President, I want to also mention that one of the lead co-sponsors also is Councilwoman Janie Blackwell. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution calling on the Council of the City of Philadelphia to condemn the actions of Crown Holdings and to call upon the company to drop its union demands and negotiate a fair contract that gives all the employees of the United Steel Workers a fair opportunity to return to work, introduced by Councilman Nielsen.
Chair recognizes Councilman Nielsen.
I move for approval.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing March 13 through April 15, 2015 as National Deaf History Month in honor of contributions made by the deaf and hard of hearing community, introduced by Councilman O'Brien.
Chair recognizes Councilman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution proclaiming April 2015 as National Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month, introduced by Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring the Saints John Newman and Maria Goretti High School girls varsity basketball team for winning the Philadelphia Catholic League Championship, the PIAA District 12 AA City Championship, and the PIAA State Championship game, while finishing the season undefeated with an overall perfect record of 30-0, introduced by Councilman Squilla.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and congratulating the Constitution High School boys basketball team, the Generals, on winning the 2015 PIAA State Championship and the District 12 City title for the AA classification, introduced by Councilman Squilla.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution proclaiming and celebrating May 2015 as Older Americans Month to recognize the diversity and contributions that older Philadelphians have made, and congratulating Ralston My Way for promoting long-term strategies for safe, healthy living for older citizens in Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and congratulating the Curtis Institute of Music on 90 years of music education and commending their directors, officers, faculty, staff, and students, both past and present, for making it an institution known nationwide for its excellence, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. At this time, are there any speeches on the part of the minority? There being none, on behalf of the majority, I'm going to wing this because we do not have an indication of the succession of the buttons, but I suspect Councilman Jones was probably first. So I'm going to call on Councilman Jones first.
You threw me off, Mr. President, but thank you for recognizing that. I was truly inspired by the freedom fighters that were recognized here today. I was truly inspired by the memory of a council person who sat in these chambers. His name was Cecil B. Moore. Smoked a cigar, cussed a little bit too much, drank a little bit too much, but he always said what was on his mind. I had the honor of delivering, it's all right, I had the honor of delivering orders to that man. And I want you to know today he was a good tipper, particularly when he was a little tipsy. But I wonder what Cecil B. Moore would be saying today, what his voice would have to say about Ferguson and what happened to the young man that was shot down on TV, what happened to the people who are every day victims of that type of subtle racism, that type of profiling. And because they were here, I would say what he would say, that we need to stand up straight, keep our back straight. And it just didn't stop with Cecil B. Moore. I know names like David P. Richardson, and some young people in here better Google him, because they probably forgot. But we need to find our voice when it comes to that kind of safety for all of our constituents, irregardless of their color, irregardless of what type of genes they have on, irrespective of what zip code they live in. If we don't stand up, who will? If we don't do it now, when? So in honor of Cecil B. Moore and the freedom fighters, I want to recognize that the best change happened in Ferguson because there were 3 newly elected council people, elected there for the first time of color, to represent truly the demographics of that area. And I want to urge everybody within the sound of my voice to remember that April 20th is the time for cutoff to register to vote. Your voice is your vote. If you do not vote, then do not complain on Wednesday after the Tuesday election. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, we've teed up now. Councilman Heenan?
I would absolutely, it's a privilege to yield my time to the majority leader, but it's a joke. So thank you. I just want to give you a little update, and I provided for each member on your desk an update on the manufacturing task force. We had our annual progress report that we just presented to the mayor last year at a fantastic reception that we had at one of our local manufacturers, a manufacturer that produces beer, Yards Brewery. So we had a great time. It was highly attended. I want to thank you for swinging by. We had also several other members of this body, Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez, Reynolds Brown, Councilman Nielsen, and Councilman Swill also were in attendance. But we had such progress in the last year on the report that we presented from the task force. One of the things that was substantial that we can report on is we created an Office of Manufacturing and Industry. And this is, we should all be proud of this. The school district, working in partners with the school district, they will be opening the Center for Advanced Manufacturing this September in 2015, a new public magnet technical high school that will teach manufacturing and process and design, which is incredible, paving the path for job opportunities, the real pipeline into an advanced manufacturing, which I think is a deliverable of this task force that every member is proud of. PIDC with the new flexible loans that they have in low-cost known progress, and the work that this body has done over the last 4 years on the single sales apportionment factor has reduced their BERT income almost to 68% in that sector of manufacturing. So, lastly, right, we had 3 members, and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to create opportunities for Philadelphia residents to go to work in something that they could be proud of, something that they can design and that they can make and that can be put out in the market. We had 3 members of our task force expand their business, creating hundreds of jobs in the city over the last year because of all our efforts. So I want to thank everybody in City Council and this body for continuing to support manufacturing here in the city, and I thank you all for that. And again, lastly, for the 3rd time, after council in the caucus room, we have a local ice cream manufacturer, Little Babies. It's Philadelphia made, so everybody in this chamber is welcome to come over and try something unique and something that they take pride in. It's ice cream. I know it's 40 degrees out there, but it'll be 70 degrees in a couple of days, all right? So stop on by and help yourself to some local manufacturing, unique ice cream made right here in Philadelphia. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Good job. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I wanted to follow my colleague and thank him for a great job on manufacturing, how important that is to the city. And also Councilman Jones on what is important in the city of Philadelphia. I want to thank all my colleagues for signing along a letter today, an open letter about the issues surrounding the country and what it means that Philadelphia and what we stand for as far as freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to have people be who they are and how important that is, and that we're welcoming them. Any people from any other states that feel like they're not welcome for whatever reason, we are proud of our culture here. We're proud of our makeup. We're proud of our diversity, and that we just want to let know any businesses that feel, any conventions that feel like they're not welcome in another state or another location, Philadelphia would be proud to have them. Thank you for all the support of my colleagues signing that letter, and also the administration and the mayor to work together to make people know how we feel here in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, for your good work. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. On Saturday, April 11th, at the programs employing people located at Broad and Federal Street in South Philadelphia, I will be hosting the Let Me Help You Save Your Home or Property Workshop and Forum. The workshop and forum will specifically focus on the issue of tangled titles, as well as the issue of individuals whose property taxes have been increased as a result of AVI, and we will have a variety of different city agencies that will work with our constituents, and with the primary focus on helping them save their home, making sure that they don't have to go to the sheriff's cell as a result of them not having income to pay their property taxes and or their mortgages. And we will also have the Office of the Sheriff participating with us in this very, very critical workshop and forum. And so we just wanted to inform constituents in the 2nd Councilmanic District to take advantage of this very important workshop. Also at 2 p.m. today in the caucus room, we will be hosting a reception for Mr. Ryan Boyer, business manager of Labor's District Council 332, who has been appointed chairman of the the Philadelphia Delaware River Port Authority. And I think that's an outstanding accomplishment for a young labor leader such as Ryan Boyer. And so we want to come out, show him our support, continue to encourage him to go on to do great things in terms of his leadership. And I invite all the council members to come out to participate and encourage him and show their support at 2 p.m. in the caucus room. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, with respect to your tangled title workshops, it's a good move. My relatively young staffer, Jeff Young, actually put together a couple in our district, and we had standing room only, and it told how many people have challenges. So I commend you on that great work, because it's going to be very much needed. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Council President. And I also want to acknowledge your staff for assisting us in terms of the technical support regarding our flyers that we put together. And so now that we're doing that in-house, this is pretty fantastic. And so thank you very much for the upgrade.
Bring it in-house, sir. And so it's our way of reducing the cost of government. And I'm sure we have a number of consultants that are not necessarily happy about that, but we have some very talented people around here. Thank you. Good work, Councilman. That concludes our speeches on behalf of the minority and majority. And with that, I recognize Councilwoman Brown for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, April 16th, 2015 at 10 a.m.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Been moved and properly second. Council will stand adjourned until Thursday, April 16th, 2015 at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Public hearing is being called to order, and we're going to talk. The City Council's Committee on Finance is here, and the purpose of this hearing is to hear testimony on bills number 140607 and 150197. I recognize that we have a quorum in the presence of Councilwoman Brown, Councilman Greenlee, Councilwoman Sanchez, and Councilman Good. Will the clerk please read the title of the bill? Both bills.
Bill number 150197, an ordinance amending sections 191303 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Discounts and Additions to Tax and 1806 entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax by further tolling additions, interest, and penalties when the assessed value of property is under appeal and further limiting tax payments due based on certain assessments under appeal, all under certain terms and conditions. And 140607, an ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code, Chapter 1600, by providing for installment payment agreements, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much. Does, Councilwoman, you have any comments? No. Okay. I would like to now call Ms. Clarina Tolson, our Revenue Commissioner, to the chair, to the table. Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Tasco and members of the Committee on Finance. I am Revenue Commissioner Clarina Tolson. I'm here to testify in support of Bill number 150197, introduced by Councilman Heenan. This bill amends Section 19-1303 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Discounts and Additions to Tax and 1806 entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax by further tolling additions, interest, and penalties when the assessed value of the property is under appeal and further limiting tax payments due based on certain assessments under appeal. In 2014, the first year of the actual value initiative, this council granted taxpayers appealing their new assessment the option to pay their real estate and use and occupancy taxes based on the 2013 assessment until the appeal is resolved. And given that some appeals remain outstanding, the Department of Revenue has allowed taxpayers whose appeals are ongoing to pay the 2015 real estate and UNO taxes using the 2013 assessment until the appeal is resolved. No taxpayer has been required to pay more than they did in 2013 until their appeal is complete. We appreciate and support Bill 150197's legal mandate to extend this option to taxpayers until their appeals are complete in accordance with our current practice. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Let me recognize Councilman Heenan, who is a member of this committee and who has joined us. Chair recognizes Mr. Heenan for remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And, good afternoon. Thank you for your testimony. I just want to, it's more of a statement than anything else, and I appreciate the members of this body as well as the administration in trying to ensure that fairness is set in place as we go through the kinks and the issues that we have as we work to resolve them all. So I just want to say thank you for your consideration and your support in helping out a lot of people move forward with a little bit of certainty, that the city of Philadelphia is paying attention to them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner. It's sort of related to this. And yesterday at the budget hearings, I brought up these issues of and I know we've talked about this, where people get a decision from the Board of Revision of Taxes, but it seems to take a while to get all the way to revenue, and then folks are getting bills that don't appear to be accurate. I have a few in my office, and I understand other council people do. Where do we stand now as far as trying to get all the various entities together so we're all working with the same numbers, if you will?
We continue to work with the Office of Property Assessment and the Board of Revision of Taxes to make sure that our data is as accurate and timely as possible. The process is one that is ongoing. Ongoing improvement is an opportunity that we have. We have not made it probably as lean as we all would like it to be. But to that end, the Revenue Department has improved some of its processes since our beginning to have the challenges. We currently send out the 2015 bills as they would have appeared absent any type of appeal. And then we also provide notice and the opportunity with a bill that states the 2013 amount. until we have formal notice from OPA of the final valuation and assessment. Once we have the notice of that final valuation assessment, it is literally within days that we send out a revised bill to the property owners and advise them that they either have the need to pay the new assessed value, the difference that may be from what they paid originally, or that there's opportunities for a refund.
Okay, I won't go into the big detail here because it doesn't directly pertain to this bill, and I certainly support this bill too, but it seems like people still are getting wrong numbers. I mean, we get a lot of that where it just, and I'm not saying it's revenue, wherever it's coming from. By the time it filters down to you guys, I don't know if you have the wrong information or whatever, but we seem to be getting a lot of that, you know?
I think certainly once the certification and the advice of the numbers that people may be given fairly quickly from the BRT, once they are processed and each agency does what it needs to do to make sure that they're accurate, the numbers should align and be correct. But until that happens, there may be a difference because we may have an assessment value that is based upon something that may have changed in 14 or 15, and we have given them a bill that is for 14, 15, and then tell them that they can pay at the 13 level. So that is part of the challenge.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Ma'am, Karina Towson. Yes.
All right, Chair recognizes Councilman.
I just wanted to say for the record, well, thank you, Commissioner Towson, for your support and your team on working to address this issue that have significantly impacted residents in certain parts of my district who have seen an increase in their taxes as a result of AVI, and so we work very aggressively and hard to try to find different ways to at least allow them to pay their taxes on time, most importantly, stay inside their homes. So I just wanted to personally say thank you for the record, so you keep up the good work, as well as I was mentioning in a community meeting the other day, our work in going after individuals who are back on taxes and our collection rate. And so I just want to thank you, tell you keep up the good work.
Thank you. I will certainly share that with, for the most part, our tax division headed by Frank Beslin, but also in collaboration with our IT team within the agency, because there was a significant amount of work to be done to make this all happen. Thank you.
We will now have the first panel regarding Bill 140607, and I call Mr. Howard Murick, a Philadelphia Water Commissioner.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Tasco and Councilwoman Sanchez, and members of the Finance Committee. I am Howard Neukrug, Commissioner of the Philadelphia Water Department. I am here with my colleague, Clarina Tolson, Commissioner of the Revenue Department. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill number 140607. Philadelphia Water shares the goal of providing all our water customers the assistance that they need to continue water service. We know that there is more we can do, and we renew our commitment to working with the sponsor of this bill and other members of the council to fully realize this goal. However, we, Philadelphia Water Department and Water Revenue Bureau, do have some concerns with the bill in its current form, which leads us to recommend that the bill be held today so that we can continue our dialogue with council. Most importantly, changes that forgive debt or payment structures must be fully analyzed to ensure legal compliance with the general bond ordinance. The city is contractually obligated to enforce its rates and charges to meet these covenants and to maintain its favorable water bond ratings. This analysis has not yet been performed, so we request more time to do so, and that we can fully understand the legal and financial implications that may follow. While significant, these concerns go to the actual mechanics of the bill and not to the overarching theme. We get it. There are too many people in delinquency and too many properties with liens. The current situation is not acceptable. Our request today is to provide us the time to work with council and stakeholders to find the right balance and create a low-income assistance program that offers real improvements for those in need while observing legal requirements and fairness to all taxpayers, all ratepayers. Last fiscal year, over $20 million was expended on a variety of assistance programs, including the charitable organization discount, the senior citizen assistance program, and support through the Utility Emergency Services Fund, to name a few. Water Revenue Bureau provides standard payment agreements, SPAs, for any customer experiencing difficulties in paying their bills, as well as more targeted assistance programs for households below 250% of the federal poverty level, where the level of assistance provided is based on the water usage and the customer's ability to pay. But still more needs to be done. We have been working with our friends at Community Legal Services to implement solutions to some of our customer service issues. The outcomes include creating an easy and more transparent application process and a simplified entry into payment agreements and a more streamlined process for appeals. In addition, on May 1st, we inaugurate the Residential Customer Assistance and Services Advisory Group, we're calling it RCAS, to further review and improve our assistance programs with many of our stakeholders. They include Community Legal Services, City Council, Penn Future, Energy Coordinating Agency, the Homeowners Association of Philadelphia, the Greater Philadelphia Corporation for Aging, and Action United. If there are other recommendations for stakeholders of this group, we are very happy to include them also. We have also recently engaged an independent contractor to review and analyze our assistance programs. We hope that with the support of City Council, we can create an affordable rates program similar to one recently begun in Washington, D.C. This work will also be in collaboration with Philadelphia's first Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Rate Setting Board, which has just been confirmed by City Council in February. As it is the entity now in charge of setting water rates, their involvement is critical as they can factor any new initiatives, payment agreements, or financial programs into the rate considerations. In conclusion, we are very supportive of the intent of the bill, but we respectfully request that the bill be held today so that Water Department, Water Revenue, CLS, the sponsor of this bill, City Council, and others can ensure an equitable and fair program that is responsive to all of our customers' needs, especially our neediest. I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I got elected and I began to look at some of the challenges of the district, one of the things that caught my eye was the large number of debt, both on the real estate and water in my district. In the real estate, many of my colleagues know that we presented a tax payment plan, which is the most progressive payment plan we've had based on people's incomes to ensure that people in poverty are not paying more than a third of their salary towards property taxes. When I got elected, 20% of the water debt was in my district, and I only represent 10% of the district. Throughout the last 7 years, I've worked very closely with the administration, and I believe my number is down to 11%. The commissioner may want to correct me. 11% of the debt. That's progress, but it's not enough. Yesterday, I received extensive information by the administration in preparations for today's hearing, and while I have not had a full time to analyze the data, one of the things that is startling to me, and I've shared it with this Finance Committee, is the number of liens on residential properties. If you look at the enclosure that we circulated, we have 311 residential properties with liens, water liens in the city of Philadelphia. I think we all understand in a city with growing poverty that this number is not acceptable. Commissioner, how does this compare with other comparable cities, this level of debt?
Well, I first want to absolutely agree with you that the level of debt is too much, and we have concerns about that. I don't have any information in front of me, but I would be very happy to either find it back in my office or to collect it through a search of other cities on how it compares to other cities. But as you know, you compare us to the 10 largest cities in America, we are one of the most neediest.
One of the things that I want to say for the record, at no time in our discussions with the water have we talked about eliminating the period of no shut-off. And I just want to, because in your testimony, there's a mention of that period of time when people are not allowed, when we do no shut-offs, and that has never been on the table for discussion. I just want to be clear.
And just to be clear, I did not add that to my oral testimony back, simply because I didn't want to take this subject off kilter, but it is an extremely important piece of a very large puzzle of how we can ensure that people get water and can afford to pay their water bill and not rack up debt.
So one of the things that the administration has requested is more time. How much time are we talking about, and what else do you feel you need time to do? And what would be the timeline? In order for me to consider your request not to move this bill, I need to have dates certain about what we're talking about.
Well, we're ready to move full steam ahead, and we've already, as I believe you know, been working with CLS on a whole host of issues that are near this issue, but not this issue in particular. We're very happy to expedite and work, and Commissioner Tolson and I are ready to commit ourselves to working with you. In terms of the time frame, I do not know where these conversations go, how complicated they get in terms of the analyses need to be done by third parties, but other than that, you have our full commitment, because there's really not much more of a, other than for me, making sure people have clean, healthy drinking water every day. There aren't a lot more important issues to making sure that people have affordable rates and that people have ways to be able to pay their bills.
So is this something we can get done in the next 30 days?
We could have a discussion and see. If
I introduced this bill. So I just want to we have to do better than that. I think it's important. I think my colleagues are ready to support this. And clearly, like we did with the real estate tax payment plan, this is too important and we want to get it right. Let me correct that. I have no longer shoot for the perfect. One of the things I've learned as a legislator. We're going to get better and sometimes not even get it right. But how much time do we need? How much more time do you need?
One thing, Councilwoman, excuse me, if I could just interject, that would be helpful for us to understand the part of the question is, our original understanding was this was to address those who, for lack of a better term, might be underwater in terms of their water bills being greater than the values of their property. The legislation as it appears right now appears to address the entire population of the city versus those who might be in that circumstance. So is it that circumstance that we're trying to address?
No, we are trying to address the city putting forth a very deliberate, very thoughtful, intentional, thank you, Councilwoman, process by which people can come forward and enter into compliance. And so while I understand that there may be my huge concern over the structural ones that I've seen, I may have 200 accounts that in the city that meet that guideline of water debt may be greater than the value of their house. But one of the things that we've learned in looking at the private industry, PECO and PGW, is that the more generous and deliberate the plans, the higher rate of compliance by the customer. And so we felt it was very important to be as comprehensive in light of the fact that this administration and all of us understand the large poverty that exists in the city. So we wanted to be broader because we wanted folks to know that they could come in and that in addition to water and real estate taxes, that this city would not overburden them with payment plans that set them up to fail.
So again, to help us try to address it and set a timeline for how we could resolve some of this, The water issues and the tax issues are slightly different, and certainly what's proposed here is different from even the UPA plans that were developed for real estate taxes. UPA does not eliminate principal. The principal remains with the property, as well as currently water debt remains with the property. So under this legislation, as I think we're reading it, this would eliminate principal for the property after several years of payment based upon income.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we put on there that allowance is that we found that most people who are eligible have not been enrolled into low-income programs. And so what we wanted to do was allow the administration to take into consideration someone who has been poor based on where they live and their income, who should have been enrolled in one of our low assistance programs, was not, so that in the calculation you would take that into consideration because we have such a low enrollment in our low-income programs.
Okay. So as we approach that issue, address the issue, I'm not sure how that is done without also looking at the issue of the moratorium, because that does impact how people may accrue their debt and what is owed.
Right. I think one of the principles of this of the bill is we want people to demonstrate that they can come into compliance, and that's why the forgiveness part of this is based on people demonstrating that they're going to get on a payment plan that they can afford, and allow them to get in a good record so that the administration can then say, you know, you have a $10,000 debt, or let's say you have a $3,000 debt. If you would have been enrolled in the RAP program, your debt might have been $1,500. If you come forward and you pay and you show good effort in 2 years, guess what? We're going to take into consideration the fact that you were eligible for that low income calculation and you were not as payment, because for whatever reason, as we know, Homestead, AVI, Loop, you know, districts like mine are still 50% under enrolled in these relief programs. It's a challenge, so I'm not totally saying that it is all our responsibility, but because we've our practice is people have to opt in as opposed to opting out, that creates this low enrollment that we have for folks who are eligible for benefits. And so what we were really doing is giving the administration as the ability to say, you know, this is someone who would have paid had they not needed a 50% deposit or 25 or the medical hardship or whatever to become compliant.
Is the intent also to make this like an amnesty program?
What we've seen from PICO and PGW is, you know, PICO 4 years ago or 3 years ago wiped out like $40 million in what was a bad debt because they knew it wasn't collectible when people showed good faith in trying to get compliant. So again, I don't look at it as amnesty because most of those people should have been enrolled in the low-income program. So you can call it amnesty if you want. I say people are eligible for a service they have not been enrolled in.
I mean, I'm saying amnesty from the standpoint of, is the intent that there be a period where people be allowed to sign up for this program, address their current delinquency, and then going forward, be expected to stay current in their bill, or as it could be read, that people would be allowed to come in and out or to start to stop paying and then utilize this as an option, because the way it could be perceived that doing it as is written here, to not pay is a better option than paying for the water bill. So I'm trying to understand, was the intent to try to make this a certain time period, clean it up, and then going forward stay current, or is it a different type of program?
Well, I think that in light of the kind of the economic times that we've faced over the last 4 or 5 years, to say a person is only eligible to clean up their record once, not understanding what a medical hardship or other situation can happen in the household. I hate setting up policy for the folks who know how to break rules, because those are few, and so that's usually not good policy. You know, when you look at 311 delinquent accounts, it's going to take us a while to clean that up. So I'm not ready to say we're going to do this only for a time period, because, you know, a medical emergency, as we all know, can lead people into hardship, poverty, and sometimes losing their homes, as we've seen in this country. So, you know, I'm not willing to look at limits for what could be. I want to look at how do we get 311,000 people potentially a pathway to compliance. So that's the difference. I'm sorry, I won't monopolize. Go ahead.
Okay.
Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Sanchez mentioned this. I don't mean this way any disrespect, Commissioner, but when I was reading your testimony beforehand and you were asking for more time, then I looked back and I saw the bill was introduced June 19, 2014. That's 10 months ago, almost. Has there been any outreach or any work done on this in the interim to, because like some of the questions you raised about the bonds and all, it seems like that could have somehow been figured out by now.
I hear you, and well, we have done what we could in order to investigate this further and understand this further, but we need more time at this point in order to work with City Council and work diligently with the City Council to make some improvements.
Okay. Well, Councilwoman said if you know, asked about a time frame, I have to say personally, 10 months sounds like a lot of time, and if she's ready to move it, I'm ready to move it, but that's certainly up to her. But let me ask you one other question. Has there ever been any study done, the Councilwoman mentioned about people getting in agreements that they know they can't really make, but they do it just to keep the water on for a certain amount of time. Is there any study how many of those kind of things get broken? Maybe Commissioner Tolson might be able to answer that better.
I can share with you that around the moratorium in fiscal 13, that our number of delinquent accounts prior to the start of the moratorium was about 4,400. And then at the end of the moratorium, it went to 40,000 accounts that were eligible for water shutoff for lack of payment.
I don't know if that's exactly where I was going. I guess looking back to my constituent service days, I remember many people that got in trouble, you know, that made an agreement, and I'd ask them, I said, you knew you couldn't pay this, why'd you pay, you know, why'd you make this agreement? And the basic answer was, I was trying to keep my water on, you know, which is a pretty good answer, I guess.
Right, and that's the comment that we're making about the moratorium, why it has to be part of the discussion, because a little over half of our agreements, payment agreements, are made at the end of the moratorium.
Right.
At the shutoff time. At that point, the amount that is owed has increased past a point where it is affordable, because oftentimes it is not paid during the moratorium period.
If it isn't, okay, I'm sorry.
So that causes a problem. We need to, you know, improve our enforcement on breaches and talk about how do we want to handle that. But that's part of this bigger discussion about how do you look at having the affordable rates, having affordable payment plans,
Right.
Maintaining those. Can you go in and out of a breach state, get another agreement? With UPA, for example, you're allowed to have a breach on that one time, and then you move on from there. It's not clear, as it's written here, that you have that same requirement. So that's why I asked the question about is the intent to be like an amnesty, and why there's a difference between this and the UPA agreement.
Okay, all right. I'll just repeat that. It seems like those questions could have been answered the last 10 months, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you very much. My staff reminds me, along this line of questioning, that there are outside agencies like Pioneer Company, for example, that are not located in our city, where when we have issues with others, taxes and so forth, at least we know Linebarger, we know BRE, we can contact them as well. But outside agencies that people have no way to access, so they don't have anywhere to get their bills straightened out. And nor, because they're an outside firm, nor do we have an opportunity where, with like real estate taxes, we can forgive penalty and interest different ways, but when you have contracts with an outside company, they're not doing business the way we're used to. So I think that whole question enters into this discussion, and we would like to hear your response to it.
I think that we certainly want our vendors to follow the policy that we have and for them to be consistent. If there are any that are not being consistent with exercising one notice to taxpayers or ratepayers about all of their rights and all their opportunities for assistance, we have a problem with that and we need to correct that. Certainly if they're not responsive, we need to know about that so that we can address it. They are an extension of the city and thereby, from my perspective, have to follow the rules that we follow and thus the rules that we would want them to follow. We have no intent for any of our vendors to be, for lack of a better word, a strong arm that we aren't willing to exercise ourselves. We're not going to try to make somebody else a scapegoat that way. And to the extent that we want to offer assistance, they have to offer that assistance as well.
That's important. It keeps in with the exact same thing my colleagues are talking about. People have problems and they need the opportunity to make agreements, not to have to stay on the phone all day because there's no person they can access locally in order to get help.
If the access issue is an issue, we certainly will go back and try to address that. I was not aware of that as being an issue with that firm, but I will certainly discuss it and see how we can correct it.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Sanchez. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Grant.
I too am struck by the request to hold and Councilman Bill Greenlee's line of questioning. So to hold would mean what? First of all, what has happened since the bill was introduced by way of bringing the stakeholders to the table, members of your team, to address the tenets of this bill? What has happened since the bill has been introduced?
Well, we've had some internal discussions, and we've met with Councilwoman Sanchez's staff, and the bill just, the conversations, and I'll take full blame for this, just came to an end. And we've moved on. We've been doing an awful lot of work in many different areas, but with this, we just need some more time to refocus on this and redouble our efforts.
So the impasse was linked to what? What created the impasse? You said it came to an end without a solution. So what's the sticking issue here? And your sit down with members of your team, Commissioner, of water.
Yes.
What were the sticking issues where it came to an end and we're here today and you're asking for a continuance on the matter?
No particular issue because, I mean, they're all, as I said in my testimony, these are all very fine, important issues that need to be resolved, and I'd rather resolve them as quickly as possible. We are in the process of looking this over and hiring a consultant to work with us to look at affordable rates, and we're doing a lot of positive proactions.
On this bill I'm talking about, on this particular bill. So were those items listed in writing, presented to the council lady, so that there could be some additional progress and movement on those issues specific to the impasse related to this bill?
Yeah. I'll have to go back to my staff and get a write-up of what exactly happened with this bill. I don't have an answer for you, obviously.
And Councilman, I would just add to that, I think that certainly from our perspective, the issue of the moratorium is one that we're not sure where that is in terms of the discussion, but we believe it is a significant issue because as you try to put together the entire policy, that's something that can't be left out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
How that will be handled relative to payment agreements.
A separate question. What red flags or signals are given to citizens, and in particular seniors, when it appears that they're at a place overburdened with the financial duties related to their water bill? What kind of triggers are there in the system for seniors in particular?
Both departments, I think, have a tremendous amount of outreach to educate people about opportunities for support, whether it be the senior citizen discount or the RAP program or the grant program. It's something that we just have to continue to do.
Now, I'm very, 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 very aware of what revenue does because you attend our senior citizen forums 8 times every fall. I'm interested in hearing what the water department does with regards to outreach specifically for seniors.
Well, we provide outreach through education packets and information in our mailers. We offer a 25% discount. And again, this is done through water revenue. Water revenue is the revenue arm of the city of Philadelphia for the water department. So, so it is really responsibility and is dealt with by water revenue. But there is a 25% discount for all senior citizens, and we fund that every year.
I see. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Yes, just to clarify, our outreach efforts on the water issues are on behalf of the water department, okay, the assistance programs.
Yeah, we're going to allow for the rest of the testimony. You know, the moratorium, as I mentioned earlier, is not on the table. PGW has the same restrictions, and they figured it out. So I don't want to go into any negotiations with anybody thinking that I'm going to move on the moratorium. Okay, I think PGW, there are other best practices, and you know, I'm open to considering the whole. Again, I'm going to say for a date certain, and know that I intend to move this bill sooner rather than later. And as we did with the real estate taxes, very open to suggestions around the practicality of, and even some whatever legal or logistical issues, but we want to get this done in the next 30 days. I think it's hugely important that we get this done. So we'll take the rest of the testimony, Madam Chair, if you allow. Thank you.
To our water commissioner, unrelated but related, linked to our budget hearings.
Yes.
I want to restate for the record at whatever point you're coming to speak during budget hearings so that there's no confusion and we don't have to hear the response. I'll get back to you. What I want is a demographic breakdown of your department in a table of organization, not a graph of numbers, but in a table of organization that has you at the top and then all of your levels of your department, with the demographic numbers on the general fund side, and then a separate table of organization for the grant side. The grants that you get through the department, from other sources.
The grants we get from other sources.
Yes, and what those numbers are demographically.
Okay. And for the general fund side, be aware we're an enterprise fund, so it's the operating fund.
Forget
of the
that. I'm sorry, repeat that.
We are a separate water fund. We're not part of the general fund, so you'll see the water fund piece and you'll see a grant piece.
And the demographic breakdown of your employees by gender and ethnicity.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go. We're going to go back, recess the hearing briefly to go back to the first bill so that we can report it out because one of our members has to leave. Could we, Councilwoman Blackwell, would you please move 150197 for the suspension of the rules?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we talking 607?
Wait a minute, no. We're in a public meeting right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there an amendment on this, on the first? No. Okay, thank you. All right,
I move that Bill number 150197 be moved out of committee with a favorable recommendation and a recommendation for suspension of the rules so as to permit first reading at our next session of council.
Second. It has been moved that Bill 150197 be reported out of committee with a favorable recommendation. You want the suspension of the rules? And that the rules of council be suspended so that this bill can be heard at council's next session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? There being none, thank you. The motion's carried. We will now go back into our public hearing. We will now call on this panel, Robert Ballinger, Roger Colton, and Roxanne Crowley. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Tasco, Vice Chairwoman Blackwell, Councilwoman Sanchez, and
Would you
members.
speak into the microphone? Somehow this mic has just gotten crazy.
I always have that problem, Councilwoman. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Tasco, Vice Chairwoman Blackwell, Councilwoman Sanchez, and members of the Committee on Finance. My name is Robert Ballinger. I'm an attorney at Community Legal Services in the Energy Unit, where I specialize in utility matters. I'm here to testify in support of the proposed amendment to 140607, which was circulated along with a fact sheet by Councilwoman Sanchez's office. The amendment would establish affordable bills based on monthly income for eligible families ranging from 2% to 4%.
Excuse me, could you kind of,
Zip through?
yeah.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. I'm not reading. I actually do have separate comments, so I'm not going through exactly what I submitted.
So your written testimony.
That's correct. I'm going to summarize my written testimony, and I'm testifying here based primarily on my experience representing low-income families in utility matters here in Philadelphia. Families who need help to restore and maintain life-essential water utility service, and it is truly life-essential. In the overwhelming majority of these cases, my clients come to me after they've already incurred a loss of service. I've represented elderly and disabled household members who need access to water for safety, for health, for medication, for basic sanitation, parents with young children whose custody is threatened by the loss of service, families facing eviction from subsidized housing and loss of voucher assistance, heirs who've inherited homes that they can't get water service to, tenants who've paid their landlords who haven't paid the water bills, and many, many people who've lived without utility service for a long period. The consequences of the loss to those families are severe. The consequences to the department and the city are no less severe. They result in the loss of service revenue, instability in housing, public health risk, and the degradation of our quality of life. I urge the committee to take this opportunity to fully consider and act upon the testimony of Mr. Roger Colton, which we'll be hearing soon via the modern technology available to us here today, and the expertise he's making available to us. We should be grateful for his generosity in being with us and providing us with the opportunity to benefit from his guidance. He is truly an expert on developing appropriate low-income programs to assist utility customers. Quite simply, I think Mr. Colton will help us understand that while the difficulties low-income families have in maintaining service are avoidable through a proper program design, they will actually produce tangible, quantifiable benefits for both customers, the department, and the city of Philadelphia as a whole. So I express my gratitude on behalf of my clients to Councilwoman Sanchez for the proposed amendment to Bill 140607. My written testimony covers a lot of things. It covers how do we determine what's an affordable bill? And we look at the expertise that's available to us. We look at the census figures. We look at what an average bill is for an average family in Philadelphia. And we try to figure out, as that average bill is applied to people with decreasing amounts of income, how unaffordable that bill becomes over time. So this bill, this proposed amendment that we've all been talking about, it represents the best of the information that's available to us from experts, from national policymakers. You'll see that my testimony relies upon the Environmental Protection Agency and saying that really municipalities should be encouraged to look at different rate structures for low-income families. It relies on best practices and saying that there's a widespread and growing recognition of the need to deal with arrears in the context of setting affordable bills, because a family who can't afford to pay for the service that's rendered most certainly cannot afford to pay more than what the service is rendered. So we think that this bill presents a comprehensive mechanism to determine what an affordable bill is. We believe the repayment schedule, the 24 to 36 months for earning forgiveness, promotes timely and good payment practices for these families for amounts they can actually afford to pay. And what Mr. Colton's going to hopefully explain to us is how that is actually in the financial interests of the department, because you're collecting revenues you wouldn't otherwise collect. And he's done studies on other utilities implementing these programs. As Councilwoman Sanchez indicated, all regulated Pennsylvania utilities have low-income programs that target affordability as a percentage of household income. They may mistarget it, or they may target it very well. It varies among the utilities. But what they all do as well is they provide arrearage forgiveness. PECO provides it over 12 months. PGW provides it over 36 months. This bill starts at the midpoint of 24 months. I think that's reasonable in this context. And it escalates up to 36 months for those families who may have relatively higher, but yet nonetheless low income. Affordability is very important, and I'll just close with these remarks. I don't think anything's going to be a surprise that I'm about to say. We have the highest rate of deep poverty amongst our peers, the largest 10 cities in the United States. Nearly 185,000 people, 12.2% of Philadelphians, including 60,000 children, face deep poverty. Their household income is less than 50% of federal poverty guidelines. Many more, approximately half of all Philadelphians, are challenged to afford basic life essentials and qualify for some form of utility service protection. So what we're doing here in addressing affordability, it's essential, it's necessary. We're backed up by best practices, both within the state and nationally, and by the experts that we're hoping to hear from a little later today, again, through the benefit of modern technology, because Mr. Colton will be joining us from his home instead of appearing in person due to the distance of his travel. But I thank the committee for its consideration. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
I will, Ms. Crawley.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez, Councilwoman Tasco. Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Roxanne Crowley. I'm a staff attorney at Philadelphia VIP. At Philadelphia VIP, we are the hub of pro bono. We match low-income clients with volunteer attorneys who handle their civil cases for free. We have a large practice of tangled title or home ownership cases. In fact, we handle the most tangled title cases in Philadelphia. Tangled title is the concept of someone living in a property with a legal right to it, but his or her name is not on the deed. They may have a right to the house due to an incomplete lease purchase agreement, adverse possession, deed fraud, and most commonly because they are an heir to the property and the record owner is deceased. In 2007, the University of Pennsylvania conducted a study along with Philadelphia VIP to assess approximately how many tangled titles there were in Philadelphia, and they estimated over 12,000. So our clients, our tangled title clients, are considered equitable owners because they do have a legal right to the property, their name just isn't on the deed. VIP supports the bill before us today, 140607, because it creates a water assistance program that ensures all Philadelphians experiencing financial hardship have access to the assistance needed to keep their water on and to avoid losing their properties to a water foreclosure. My testimony is brief. I do want to focus on the hurdles our equitable owner clients, the tangled title clients, must overcome in order to even have a shot at getting their water service restored. For many of these tangled title properties, the water bill is in the name of the record owner. This person may be dead, may be missing, may have moved to Alaska, may have absconded, we don't know. Our clients, the equitable owners, are paying this water bill to keep the water service on. The equitable owners experience some kind of financial hardship, a medical hardship that the councilwoman mentioned earlier. As a result, they begin to become behind on the bill. They may go to revenue to try to get into a payment plan. They don't have much success. Over time, the bill gets so big, the water's shut off. Those equitable owners with the tangled title who are most resourceful do make their way to community legal services. At that time, CLS assesses the case. They determine that it's a tangled title case. The person may have a legal right to the house, they just can't get their water on. That case is then sent to Philadelphia VIP. Our staff assesses the case, we interview the client, we review any factual information relevant to that client's claim to title. If we determine the client is an equitable owner and has a valid legal claim to title, we will issue a letter of meritorious claim to title. That letter briefly describes why the client has a right to the house, and it also says that we are going to try to match that client with a volunteer attorney who will help resolve the tangled title problem. That letter is then sent back to CLS. CLS takes the letter and they use it to support the client's application to become a water customer. And they are in a special narrow group called occupants with ownership interest. Now, after all of this advocacy and review, and keeping in mind that the client's water has been off for days, weeks, even months, sometimes years, after the advocacy of our two agencies, there's no guarantee that this client is going to be able to become a water customer. The only sure way to get someone into the customer status is to eventually resolve their tangled title case and get them to become a record owner. So with that in mind, and the experiences we have at VIP working with CLS, there are several aspects of the bill that are particularly important for our tangled title clients. The first is the inclusion of equitable owners in the Low Income Assistance Program, IRAP, because of the challenges I've mentioned, but also because there are at least over 12,000 properties in Philadelphia with a tangled title. Legal Services doesn't have the capacity to help that many people, and not everyone in that group meets the financial requirements for free legal services. So we need a program that enables all of those people, if they enter a financial hardship, to have access to water and to avoid losing their properties to a water foreclosure. We support the financial hardship tiers as outlined in the bill. These ensure affordability of water based upon household income, and they set clear guidelines that can be consistently applied. We also support the acceptance of income and residency determinations made pursuant to Philadelphia Code Section 19-1305-3C, and that is the section of the code that created the real estate tax assistance programs. And many of our clients are also in payment plans for their real estate taxes. By accepting proof of income and residency submitted with their real estate tax application, the IRAP application process is streamlined, and the administrative burden of collecting documentation is decreased for the WRB. So the fact that in 2015, Philadelphians lived without water for weeks, months, and even years is staggering. Our clients want to pay what they can to avoid losing their homes at water foreclosure and to have running water in their properties. They just need the means to do it. So on behalf of VIP and our clients, I thank you for inviting me to testify today.
Thank you very much. We have Mr.
May I make a statement, Madam Chair?
Councilwoman.
Thank you. Another thing, and certainly I went to Commissioner, and you may comment if you choose.
Hello, Jennifer.
Certainly. That is, my staff is telling me about another issue where there's a company that subcontracted to, whose name is Official Payment Company. So there is a company named Official Payment Company. So if you pay by phone or online, it takes them 7 days to process it. So if your water's off, you got to wait 7 days for your water to get back, in spite of the fact that you paid it, to this company called Official Payment Company.
Is it tied in with the city?
Yes. So that's a whole nother issue. How about a company called Official Payment Company? That's pretty shrewd. And then they have to wait 7 days until they're, even when they have their confirmation number, still they have to wait 7 days to get back on. There's something wrong with that too. So we hope that you all, unless you want to comment about it now, check into that and get back to the chair and sponsor the legislation, and they'll get to all of us.
If I may, just briefly, Councilwoman, I'm not familiar with that particular vendor, but we do recognize that it is often a hardship for our clients to travel to Water Revenue to make the payment in person that results in the fastest restoration of service. I think it's an important issue that service is sometimes impeded by access to the facilities that are needed to be accessed to make payment. And that could happen online. Like I said, I'm not familiar with that particular company, but we do advise our clients to go in person and make payment because we know it's the fastest way to restore.
Yeah, but that's with everything. Everybody can't always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now recognize Mr. Roger Colton, who's by video.
Mr. Colton, if you could introduce yourself and then begin your testimony.
Thank you. I appreciate the efforts to make the technological arrangement today. My name is Roger Colton, and I work with the economic consulting firm of Fisher, Sheehan, and Colton in the Boston area. I've also previously submitted written comments on the matters we are addressing today. Promoting the affordability of home water service in Philadelphia serves multiple economic objectives, and my testimony this afternoon will review those objectives within the context of a water affordability program such as has been presented to the Philadelphia City Council. When people consider an affordable water program such as that, which is now before the council, one question that is nearly always asked of me is what the expenditure of those affordability funds buys for the utilities and for the utility ratepayers. Adopting an affordability program can be expected to improve payment coverage by low-income customers and thus increase total revenues from program participants. Stated conceptually, it's better for a utility to collect 90% of a $70 bill, which is $63, than it is for that utility to collect 60% of a $100 bill. In fact, an evaluation of a rate discount program operated by Public Service Company of Colorado found that the participants in that company's affordability program experienced a sufficiently substantial improvement in payment coverage ratios relative to the low-income non-participants and more than offset the discount that was provided. As my written comments show, PSCO found that low-income program participants substantially outperformed the payment coverage of low-income customers that did not participate in the program. By the end of the Colorado pilot program, the payment coverage ratio, which is simply the percentage of the bill which is actually paid, of the participants in the low-income program was nearly 30% higher than the payment coverage ratio of low-income customers not participating in the program. At the same time that Public Service Company of Colorado revenue was increasing, the effort needed and thus the cost incurred to collect that revenue was decreasing. PSCO not only received more payments, in other words, but the utility didn't have to work as hard to generate those payments. PSCO needed to engage in from 3 to 5 times more collection activities for each 1,000 customer payments it received from non-participants than it did for payments received from participants. Overall, when higher revenues are coupled with lower collection costs from a business perspective, Philadelphia Water Department will be financially better off with an affordability program than without one. There are other non-utility benefits as well. As a result of the mismatch between water bills and the resources needed to pay them, many low-income households incur unpaid bills and experience the termination of service. In addition, however, even when low-income households pay their bills in a full and timely manner, they will suffer significant adverse hunger, education, employment, health, and housing consequences in order to make those payments. And I want to discuss just one of those non-utility benefits from affordability program because it affects the city of Philadelphia in its capacity as a provider of municipal service, and that has to do with education. One study in Missouri found that households with high utility bill burdens are frequent movers, whether they move in search of more affordable utility bills or to avoid the service disconnection due to non-payment. In turn, the frequent mover status of the students was one of the primary factors contributing to educational underachievement. Third grade students that have changed schools frequently are 2.5 times as likely to repeat a grade as third grade students who have never changed schools. Frequent mover students are more likely to be below grade level in both reading and math. The impact is not only to decrease the ability to educate the students, but increase the cost of providing that education. Finally, the problems associated with inability to pay affect the competitiveness of local business and industry. One comprehensive study performed in collaboration with the Center for Workforce Preparation of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Center for Workforce Success of the National Association of Manufacturers reported that many low-wage workers fail to access public benefits, such as water affordability benefits. This not only hurts the workers who miss out on income and benefits, the study found, but, and now quoting the study, it also hurts their employers through higher turnover and increased absenteeism. Unreliable transportation, inadequate child care, and poor health are leading contributors to absenteeism, tardiness, and turnover among low-income workers. These same results would arise from a lack of water affordability, and addressing those impacts would result from adopting a water affordability program. In sum, making water affordable generates many positive economic outcomes. It generates positive financial effects for the water utility itself. It generates non-utility benefits to program participants, but it also generates positive economic benefits to the broader community as a whole. I would encourage you to adopt a program such as has been presented, and I again want to thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak today. I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony and taking time to present yourself. We've come a long way with technology, and so thank you. Any comments from members of the committee?
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Mr. Colton, I want to thank you for your very robust presentation that you've made to us and to the committee. Are you available to work with the City of Philadelphia if they were to institute this and ensuring that we put forth best practices in light of our very unique poverty?
The question was if you would be available to work with the City of Philadelphia if we were looking for best practices to address our significant poverty rate in the context of
The implementation phase.
I would not only be available, I would be delighted to work. And if you can arrange some participation dates where the Red Sox are playing the Phillies, I would be even more delighted.
What did he say? What did he say?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're set. Thank you.
Council, we now thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate all the hard work you do. And we now call on our final panel, Emmanuel Rivera, Charles Lanier, and Will Gonzalez.
While they're coming, if I might, Madam Chair, my staff told me in that case where there was a question about a person doing it over the phone, it's a handicapped individual. So they could not physically approach anyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to this hearing. Would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony? Mr. Rivera.
Good morning. My name is Emmanuel Rivera. I want to thank City Council for the opportunity to provide testimony today with regards to Bill number 140607. I'm the project manager for ASIS CDC. We're a local community development corporation located in eastern North Philadelphia. Since 1982, as a nonprofit 501c3 Community Economic Development Corporation, ASA has been serving the Eastern North Philadelphia section of the city for over 32 years. ASA's mission has been to
the microphone, please.
Sure, absolutely.
Pull the mic down. Thank
There you go. ASA's mission has been to combat community deterioration through economic development initiatives that address commercial revitalization, employment opportunities, the creation of safe, affordable housing, and the provision of supportive services to meet the needs of community residents towards rebuilding their neighborhood's economic base. In the area of housing, ASA has developed over 427 units of affordable housing, both rental and home ownership. ASA has managed over $100 million of housing and commercial development in the Fairhill and St. Hugh communities, which are the primary focus of a lot of our work. This work has effectively stimulated the local real estate market and supported positive growth of commercial businesses directly benefiting local residents. One second here, I'm sorry. In addition to working with corridor businesses, our organization's bricks and mortar development, ASA has for over 2 decades been directing localized initiatives, encouraging home ownership, the availability of affordable housing, and the provision of supportive services to our residents. These initiatives have been spearheaded through the work being conducted through our organization's housing counseling program and neighborhood energy centers. ASA's housing counseling program is a core program in fulfilling the organization's mission for preventing homelessness, promoting homeownership and rental housing in coordination with our development activities. ASA has been providing citywide housing counseling services since 1991 with the financial support from OHCD. In fact, in addition to the Fairhill and St. Hugh communities, for the past decade, ASA has been operating a satellite housing counseling program office located at 4660 Frankfurt Avenue in the Frankfurt neighborhood, serving the Frankfurt, Juniata, Mayfair, Castor Gardens, Bridesburg, Holmesburg, Lower Northeast, and Torresdale neighborhoods. Since 2010, ASA's Frankfurt's office has also served as a neighborhood energy center, providing energy conservation education, fuel assistance, and referrals to our network of conservation service providers. In 2011, ASA's Neighborhood Conservation Center started to provide water conservation education and basic home repairs under the LICAP program for a reduction of water bills. The demographic for ASA's housing counseling and neighborhood energy conservation client base are as follows: 8% white, 55% Hispanic, 24% African American, and 30% other or unreported. Fully 43% of the households are headed by single mothers. Elderly households represent 16%, and disabled persons represent 10% of the clients we serve. The poverty level for the target area significantly exceeds that for the city as a whole. Fully 90% of the households have household incomes below 50% of median for the area, and are actually, in fact, closer to 30% of AMI. With a client flow of over 200 households per month, these programs reach over 2,400 persons annually. Based on our past experience and interactions with city residents, as an organization, we come to you today in support of the proposed bill number 140607, as Philadelphia's current water and wastewater billing practices make water service unaffordable or unattainable for the populations we presently serve. Water bills have become increasingly too expensive for low-income households, as the present billing rates do not clearly take into account the limited financial resources of our resident populations. Furthermore, enrollment in available assistance programs can be difficult, as there is no transparent process explaining the eligibility requirements and what documentation is sufficient to provide household income and residency. Lastly, the present situation is further exacerbated by the fact that assistance is often undermined by the need to make burdensome additional payments on aged debts already accrued, not taking into account our low-income population's inability to afford these services to begin with, making eventual repayment next to impossible. Therefore, we as an organization fully support the proposed changes outlined in Bill number 140607, tethering repayment to the individual resident's ability to pay by creating income-based payment guidelines relative to the area median income would allow water customers to pay bills that are an affordable percentage based on their assessed household income. Also, creating an easy and transparent application process and ensuring those who qualify are enrolled in the program would create an effectively streamlined process, enabling those residents with both language barriers and those with access to computer devices to effectively navigate the application process. Lastly, the protection of water access and preventing water foreclosures by informing customers who are struggling to pay all available assistance programs, and by providing referrals to housing counseling and nonprofit organizations such as ours, would ultimately aid in creating an effective intervention model to aid in the prevention of water utility debt and water utility foreclosures. In summation, fundamentally, all Philadelphians, regardless of income, should have access to the basic necessity of running water, which at its core is the foundation of human existence. With that, I open the floor for any questions.
Thank you. We'll wait till testimony is completed, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Lanier.
Yes, good afternoon, Councilman Tasco, and to the distinguished members of the Finance Committee. As stated, my name is Charles Lanier, and I am the Executive Director of the Hunting Park Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and also we are a Neighborhood Energy Center. As a Neighborhood Energy Center, we are one of 14 that serves thousands of people throughout the city of Philadelphia, and we provide assistance to individuals and families, particularly low-income individuals and families, with applications for LIHEAP crisis, USEF fertility grants to prevent utility shutoffs. We also conduct energy conservation workshops and budget counseling as well. In addition to these services, we pre-screen and provide client recruitment services to low-income customers of the Philadelphia Water Department. Residents who qualify for the low-income conservation program called LICAP receive minor plumbing repairs, inclusive of repair and replacing leaking faucets, low-flow shower heads, minor pipe repairs, and minor toilet repairs. Many of the challenges of our clients is the inability to pay their outstanding water and wastewater billing, which is unaffordable and unattainable for a significant number of the city's population. Hunting Park, as stated, is a very diverse community with one of the highest level of poverty levels in the city of Philadelphia. This program makes sense. We support this wholeheartedly. Bill Ordinance 140607. It will be a major milestone for low-income residents in the city of Philadelphia. The current billing process administered by the Water Department is complicated and lacks the opportunity for customers to receive adequate access to information to help resolve this major utility problem. Some of these challenges consist of the following, beginning with the fact that the customer does not have the actual, if the customer does not have the actual water shut-off notice in their possession, they cannot receive help, even with verification that they are in shut-off status from the Water Department. If a family member occupying a property as a renter, they cannot receive any help from the Water Department because obviously they're not the owner. The owner may be an absentee owner living outside the city, what have you. But the owner, once the owner does get involved, at that point, the property may be liens and be administered to the property and maybe even in the foreclosure status. In reference to the RAP program, customers are not told to pay their current bill in full along with the RAP agreement, which will reduce the total bill. And as a result, the customer's bill, while on RAP, continues to increase. Yes, I've heard earlier that people sign agreements. Yes, they do sign agreements. They sign agreements to prevent the shutoff of their water. They will sign. But without education and information, it's detrimental to that person and or family. And I'm sure, and I will go out on a limb with this here, that when a person comes in to make an agreement, budget counseling is not done at that time to determine whether or not that person can afford the agreement that they're signing. This is basically really one of the very important reasons why we have neighborhood energy centers, to assist people with that whole process. But a lot of times it's after the fact. By creating an income-based payment guidelines, this allows water customers below certain income thresholds to pay bills that are an affordable percentage of the household income, and as a result, gives the Water Department the opportunity to achieve realistic payments by reducing debt over a realistic period of time. Under the current system, the debt will never be paid because the present economy and the income levels of the people that are affected by this problem will never be reduced. The debt will never be reduced. It will be continued to pile on, and no progress is made. So I respectfully submit this testimony, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gonzalez.
Buenas tardes, gracias. Good afternoon, distinguished members of City Council. Thank you very much for organizing a public hearing on such an important topic, the Income-Based Water Rate Assistance Program, and for inviting us to testify before you today. My name is Will Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SEBA. SEBA is a coalition of Latino community-based organizations in Philadelphia. We coordinate the housing counseling activities of our member organizations in a way that takes a holistic approach to their finances, where we try to incorporate matters of financial literacy, free tax preparation, and access to programs that help them save money. SEBA enthusiastically supports the creation of an income-based water rate assistance program, as it will help low-income people pay their water bills and help the city collect unpaid water bills through a more affordable, more efficient, and more transparent process. This is more than just a program about paying for water. The bill's tethering of payments of water bills to the ability of a homeowner to pay makes it possible for families to meet their obligations, not only with their water invoices, but also with their property taxes, their mortgages, and other costs that keep a household healthy and vibrant. You can't get blood out of a stone. If a family only has a certain amount of income coming in, it behooves us to find ways to help them successfully juggle their obligations, or we risk decreasing the number of low-income homeowners in the city. Philadelphia is blessed with a favorable homeownership rate among low-income people, according to a 2012 report from the Pew Foundation. Families earning less than $35,000 a year account for nearly 38% of owner-occupied properties in the city. That puts Philadelphia second in the nation in that category among the 30 largest cities of the U.S. That favorable position is buttressed by a high rate of homeowners who own their home free from a mortgage. Philadelphia is third among the nation's 30 largest cities, with a rate of 41% of owner-occupants holding their property free and clear. We need to protect that home ownership advantage for the city. The foreclosure crisis of the last decade already caused a 7.1% decrease in the rate of homeownership in Philadelphia. In eastern North Philadelphia, where most of the Latino community of the city lives, that decrease was way above 10%. It is important to keep our rate of homeownership strong with efforts like the Income-Based Water Rate Assistance Program, because homeownership and neighborhood stability go hand in hand. Homeowners move far less frequently than renters, and consequently are embedded into the same neighborhood for longer periods of time. That stability is one of the reasons why homeownership helps to lead to positive social indicators for families who achieve it and to neighborhoods in which they live. And some of those social indicators were mentioned by the gentleman who testified over the video screen, Mr. Corbin. The more homeowners we have, the more stable our communities are. The existence of customer assistance programs by the Water Department shows that the Water Department recognizes the benefits to the homeowner and to the community of helping low-income families pay their water bills. What is needed now is improvements in the program to make it easier for homeowners and for housing counselors who help them to access those programs and utilize them, and more efficient for the city workers to run it. The income-based water rate assistance program does this by making the application process more open. It clearly explains eligibility requirements and extends the enrollment period to help people successfully complete the program and for the city to collect more revenue. We also encourage City Council to continue to support programs that promote water conservation and multilingual public education programs about how people can save on their water bills. So we should not only just look at how to make things more affordable, but also how do we conserve water. Prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. All these measures will not eliminate the need for a good income-based water rate assistance program. All the conservation measures won't eliminate that need, but it will help low-income people too by helping them use less water and save money. We also want to encourage the water department to heighten its efforts at communicating with the community, and especially the limited English proficient community, about whatever programs they have, especially programs that benefit senior citizens. And I also want to echo the comments made by my colleague from ASE about encouraging the water department to utilize the housing counseling network that exists in the city of Philadelphia. Housing counselors provide a great resource to the community and looks holistically at how families can improve their budgets. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Please feel free to contact us if you need additional information.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Sanchez.
Yeah, I want to thank all of the stakeholders for helping us get a grasp of this information. We received yesterday some information from the Water Department to questions regarding the debt situation in the city. And one of the things that, again, we haven't had an opportunity to totally digest it, but one of the things that is the most scary, going to Mr. Gonzalez, your point, was that in fiscal year 14, there were 346 residential properties sold at sheriff's sale for owing less than $2,500 in water. And so I used this, and we just circulated it to the committee to highlight kind of the urgency of this. And so, Madam Chair, what I'd like to request is that this bill, while I'll agree with the administration in light of the fact that I just got this yesterday, that with the administration to allow more time, this is very, very urgent. And I'd like to make sure that this bill get listed at your next Finance Committee hearing. And in the meantime, we will work with the administration with whatever amendments. There were some amendments that we have today, and if we can call our members back, we can vote them. We can go back into the meeting, and we can vote the amendments. I'm sorry, I know. They're across the hall. If we could do so, but I just want to, one of the things we want to do, we will share these numbers with the stakeholders, because I think that they really do amplify the urgency of the matter, and we hope that we can bring this to a resolution very quickly. And part of what we will suggest to the administration is a more comprehensive way of housing counseling relating to the water department, including, as we've done with Councilwoman Tasco led the effort around foreclosure, the sharing of some of the information so that housing counselors could do more preventive work. As I mentioned at the beginning of the hearing, when I found out I had 20% of the debt, to me it was sort of like an insurmountable task. But working with the water department and the emergency utility funds and others, we've put a dent in it, but clearly not enough. And so I really do look forward to the implementation of this regulation, as we have been with our tax foreclosure program, as a way to show folks a pathway to compliance and make sure people can stay in their homes. So thank you all of you for testifying today and for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we have a quorum here that we can We'll come out of the public. We'll come out of the public hearing. Next meeting. Okay, we'll see. Councilman Greenlee to offer amendment to Bill 0607.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the adoption, if I don't break the microphone, I move the adoption of the amendment to Bill number 140607.
Second. Has been moved and seconded. We adopt the amendment to Bill 140607. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? There being none. We will come out of the public meeting,
Go to the hearing.
go to the hearing.
And then hold it in here.
And we're going to hold this bill until the next session of the Finance Committee. Thank you.
You finished?